Hey guys, today I'm going to demo an application that I've been working on recently. It is a digital asset management application that employs IBM Blockchain Platform as well as IBM Cloud Object Storage. In this first video, I will walk you through a demo of the application, and in the next video, I'll show the steps required to run the application. I've included the link of the next video in the description below. So digital asset management systems deal with the managing and maintaining of digital assets and their metadata. An asset could be an image, a PDF file, a music file, or even a video file. And its metadata can range from something as simple as the name of the asset, the name of the creator or the owner of the asset, and the time when the asset was created. Or the metadata could be something more complex, such as the transcript of the audio from an audio or video asset. Now, a digital asset management system has many participants. There are many users who will want to maintain their assets in the system, share them with other users of the system, and they will also want to ensure that their asset isn't tampered with by somebody who doesn't have the right permissions to modify or even remove the asset from the system. This makes it an ideal use case for blockchain, as blockchain's ledgers will ensure that there is a chain of record tracking any and all actions performed on any given asset. Now, let's have a look at that digital asset management application. So this here is the landing page of the digital asset management application. Right now, we have not created any users. So there's no users in this digital asset management application. There are no assets that have been uploaded in here. So the first step would be to register some users, and then we can log in using these users. I'm going to register 3 users for the purpose of this demo. So let's start with harry.potter@mail.com. Oops, I need to enter all the fields before I do the registration. So Harry and Potter, register. All right, user with email address harrypotter@mail.com is updated in the world state. We can use the email address to log in above. Let's also go ahead and create the other 2 users that I want to create. Ronald Beasley@mail.com. And once that's done, we can move on to the third user, and you guessed it, Hermione Granger at mail.com with the name Hermione and the last name is Granger. All right, so I have all 3 users that I need created in this digital asset management application. I can log in using any one of them. Let's start with Harry. All right, so you can see here that you've logged in as harrypotter@mail.com. The screen that it shows, it says there are digital assets and it gives a table. It actually just shows the headers for that table and no entries under it. And that is because no assets have been uploaded to the system yet. So if you click on Query All Digital Assets button, none of them will be shown because there are none. Query My Digital Assets actually shows all of the digital assets that are owned by the user that has logged in, which is harrypotter@mail.com in this case. Harry Potter also does not have any assets uploaded to the system yet, so nothing can be shown on the screen either. So let's move on to the next button and choose Upload New Asset. And this time around, we're going to upload an asset to the digital asset management system that we've created. So let's take this image file from here, which is the Angular icon, and let's upload this digital asset. So in the background, a couple things are happening. One of the things that happens is the hash for this particular file is calculated, and there is a check that's made to ensure that another entry with the same hash does not already exist in the system. And this is important because you don't want 2 different users claiming to be owners of the same exact asset. So this once the check passes, once the hash check passes, only then that file is actually retained in Cloud Object Storage, which is where all our assets are retained. And once that is done, an entry is added to the blockchain ledger to say that this particular digital asset with this link for Cloud Object Storage, where we can access the asset, and this is the asset hash, and this is the user who has uploaded it, and so on. So Right, so it says digital asset was successfully added to the blockchain. Let's go back. And that's exactly what we see on the Query All Digital Asset screen now. We see that this asset ID with the asset name of image underscore angular.jpg was uploaded by the asset owner, which is Harry Potter at mail.com. And it was uploaded by Harry Potter, but then the asset owner is also Harry Potter at mail.com, because when a user uploads an asset, we've made the assumption that that's the person who will be owning the asset. And you can see the timestamp when this file has been added. So now the next button that I'd like to talk about is the View Asset Modification Requests button. If we go over there, we see that there is again an empty table over here. And in this particular table, what you see is all of the pending modification requests for any assets that might be owned by the user that is logged in, which is Harry Potter. So if Harry had more than one assets and more than one of those assets had modification requests which had been created by other people, which is these kinds of modification requests are created when other users try to update an existing asset. So if there were any such assets owned by Harry Potter, which some other users had tried to update, a list of those assets as well as the updates that were being made or the updates that were being suggested or requested would be populated in here. Since there are none at the moment, this is empty. Once this list gets populated, once and if this list gets populated, Harry will have the right to either approve or deny any of the modification requests that are listed over here. So let's go back. And the next button I'd like to talk about is the Update Digital Asset. So once you select an asset over here, that's when you can click on the buttons which are down here. Otherwise, it just throws an error saying you need to select an asset first. So Update Digital Asset will let you modify the existing asset. The only users who are allowed to change a particular asset are the owner of the asset and any other users who have been provided update rights. So they are approved users who can make modifications to this asset. And the way that works is when a user approves an existing asset modification by somebody, they are given an option to decide if all future modifications by this particular user should be allowed directly without approval. We'll get back to this when we look at the View Asset Modification Request button and how that screen works. But update asset essentially can only be performed by the asset owner and any approved users. Anybody else, when they do an update digital asset, it's not directly reflected as a change in the asset, but goes to the View Asset Modification Requests page, and it needs to be approved by the owner for that modification to be actually applied on the asset. The next is change ownership of asset. That is when Harry, if he wants to give the ownership of any asset that he owns to Ron or to Hermione, he could do that. At this moment, let's not go there. We'll try that out at a later step. Delete digital asset, as the name suggests, you can delete the asset and remove existence of the asset from the system. That, however, does not remove the asset's history from the blockchain, and that's the whole point, right? That's why we want blockchain to be the backbone for our digital asset management system, because that would ensure that any modifications, any updates, literally anything that is done to an existing asset up to when it was deleted, everything will still be retained in the ledger even after the asset is deleted. And by everything, I mean the chain of records will be maintained. So at this point, what we can do is let's download the digital asset and see how it looks. So if we click on download digital asset, it's going to say the asset imgangular.jpg will be downloaded to the web app client downloads folder. So let's click OK, and I'll go there. And we can see that at 6:09 p.m. it was downloaded. So we can open it, and that's exactly the file that we had uploaded, right? So this way we can ensure that the files are retained there in COS and Cloud Object Storage. Next, let's log out from Harry Potter's account and log in as Ronald Weasley and upload a new file, as well as try to update Harry's existing file. Now, as before, we can see that there is one asset that exists in the system at this point. So query all digital assets will show that asset, which was uploaded by Harry Potter. However, if I click on query my digital assets, no assets will be displayed because Ronald has not uploaded any assets so far. Ronald does not own any assets in the system so far. So let's go ahead and upload a new asset for Ronald. We'll choose this music file here and say upload digital asset, and the same things like before keep happening, right? The hash is calculated, the hash is checked across all assets in the system to ensure the asset doesn't already exist. The asset is uploaded, the file is uploaded to Cloud Object Storage, and an entry is made in the blockchain. Going back, we can see now that query all digital assets shows both Harry's asset as well as Ronald's asset, and query my digital assets only shows Ronald's asset. All right, so in addition to uploading, let's now try to update Harry's asset. So we can say update digital asset and choose file. And let's upload a different JPEG file in place of what Harry has already uploaded, right? So let's say choose and update digital asset. In case of update, just like in case of upload, the same kind of checks are made. The hash is calculated, the hash is checked across all files, the file is stored in Cloud Object Storage, and an entry is made into, an entry or an update is made into blockchain depending on which case this falls under. So right now, Ronald does not have rights to update the file imgangular.jpg, which is owned by Harry Potter. And that is the reason why it says over here that the asset update is pending approval. So it says here that the asset will be updated subject to approval from the asset owner, which is harrypotter@mail.com. So this is because Harry, like I mentioned, Harry Potter has not added Ronald Weasley to the list of approved users yet, and he can do that now if he wishes when he goes in and tries to approve this particular modification which Ronald has suggested. So we can close this out and we can go back, and we can see that even though Ronald has requested a change or requested a modification, it doesn't show up in here. So the actual file has not been modified. If we try to download the file again, say we download Harry Potter's file again and we go back in here and we try to see, it's still the same file, right? Ronald's file has not been added over there instead, which is the React icon which Ronald had uploaded was not added. What we can also check is that since Ronald is not the owner of this asset, he will not be able to delete the asset, and he will not be able to change the ownership of the asset as well. So now that all of this is done, we can log out from Ronald's account. Let's log back in from Hermione's account, and we'll try to update both the files, the one that Harry uploaded as well as the one that Ronald uploaded, so that we can show the different kinds of permissions which can be provided when we approve or deny an existing modification request. So now another thing has happened in the background here when Ronald tried to update that file. Because Ronald is not an approved user, his change or his modification was subject to approval by Harry, and the digital asset management system sent an email notification to Harry indicating that somebody is trying to modify a file that you own, an asset that you own. In our system, we're making use of a fake SMTP mail server using Mailtrap, which captures all of the emails which are being sent out of our system. So let's go to mailtrap.io. and we can have a look at that email that was sent. So you can go to inbox and see that there's one email over here, and it says somebody has requested to update your digital asset, right? So it gives the information about the asset which somebody had tried to update. It says who was the person who tried to update this asset, and it provides the update timestamp as well. And we can click on this link here to go back to our digital asset management system, and then Harry can log back in over here to have a look at the modification that Ronald had suggested. Let's log back in as Hermione Granger and perform some more uploads and updates. So like before, we can see both the files that have already been uploaded to the system, which is the one by Harry and the one by Ronald. If we go to query my digital assets, we should see none, which is exactly what we're seeing. Let's upload a new asset, and this time around we can upload a PDF file and click on upload digital asset. And once that's done, we can go back and we can see that 3 files exist in the system now. So let's go and update both Harry as well as Ronald's files. So I'm going to update this file and I'm going to choose the img_view, which is the view icon now, and say update. Like in case of Ronald's update, because Hermione is not an approved user yet, her change will be subject to approval from the asset owner, which is Harry Potter. And we can go back to Mailtrap and verify the same thing. Harry has received another email saying Hermione Granger is trying to update your file. Going back here, if we try to update Ronald Weasley's file as well, so if we click on that and we say update and we choose a different file, let's say this one, and we say update digital asset, we're going to get the same message, and another email will be sent, this time to Ronald, saying a file that he owns there was an attempt to update that file by Hermione. So you can see a few seconds ago there's another email which is for Ronald Weasley, and the asset has been updated by Hermione Granger. All right, so next what we'll do is we'll log back in as Harry Potter, and we will decide if we want to approve or deny any of the changes that Ronald and Hermione have suggested on the file that he owns. So now, as before, we can see there are 3 assets in the digital asset management system. And if we go to query my digital assets, we can only see one of them, which is the one that Harry Potter owns. So let's go to view asset modification requests. And we know that both Ronald and Hermione have made modifications. Harry has received emails which indicate that 2 people, Ronald and Hermione, have suggested modifications to the asset that he owns. So let's have a look at what these modification requests are. So we can see Harry's asset is listed here in the view asset modification requests table. So we can click on that and both Ronald and Hermione's changes are populated in here. So let's look at the one that Ronald has made, and we can download the file from here and we can decide if we want to approve or deny this particular change. So it has been downloaded to the same downloads folder, which is here. Let's open it. Harry does not like this file, so he wants to go ahead and deny this particular change. So we can select this one and say deny and confirm it. And as soon as that is confirmed, that particular entry goes away from this list. And that is because with the denial, the file is removed from Cloud Object Storage and it is removed from the blockchain ledger. Now, of course, when I say it is removed, it is not removed from the history, right? It's just removed from the list of current assets, but it is not removed from the history, and we can go back in and look for the history of this particular asset, and it will still show that there was this particular file which existed as a pending modification, but it was then removed. So just like in case of Ronald's file, let's go and have a look at Hermione Granger's file. I'm going to click download. It'll download it here, and that's the latest one is this one, which it has downloaded. And that's the file that Hermione had uploaded, right? So let's see, we like this file, we like this change. So we can go in and click approve. We can go in and click approve and say that yes, we do want to approve this modification. Now we get another message when we say approve. Would you also like to add this user as an approved modifier for this asset? This would mean that all future modifications to this asset by this user would be directly applied. This essentially means that If this particular permission is provided, then all future changes that Hermione makes to this particular file will not have to go through Harry Potter's approval and can directly be applied to the file. Right now, let's just say we don't want to do that and we can click cancel. In which case, what's going to happen is the asset will get updated with Hermione's change, but Hermione's future changes will still be subject to approval by Harry Potter. Let's go back and see what's happened. So we can see that Harry Potter's file was last modified by Hermione Granger at this particular time. And if we download the file again, so if I say download digital asset, it's going to go to the downloads folder, and this is the file which was downloaded, and you can see that it no longer is the Angular image, it's the Vue.js icon which was uploaded by Hermione. So the file's been updated. In both the denial and the approval cases, emails were sent to Harry, Ronald, as well as Hermione. So let's go and have a look at those. So this first one was the one that got sent to Harry and Ronald. It said that the digital asset modification request was denied recently. This is the asset, this was the person who requested for the modification, and this is the person who denied it, or who was the asset owner. Likewise, the email that was sent to Harry and Hermione was that the digital asset modification request was approved recently. And it was approved by Harry. This is the asset. It was approved by Harry. It was updated by Hermione. And this is the update timestamp. That's exactly what we have seen has happened over here. So now let's log out from Harry Potter again. Let's log into Ronald Weasley and approve or deny the modification that Hermione has made on his file. So after logging back in with Ronald Weasley's account, we can see that there is an asset modification request on his asset by Hermione Granger. We can, like before, download the file, have a look at it. Let's say we do that, and this time around, Ronald likes the change that Hermione Granger has suggested and he wants to approve it. But along with that, he also wants to give Hermione permissions to be an approved modifier for this asset, which means all changes that Hermione makes to this file in the future will be approved or will be directly applied, right? So let's say okay. And like in case of the deny as well as the approve that we did earlier, this particular record would be removed. The pending modification request would be removed from blockchain. And based on whether it was an approval or a denial, either the cloud object storage file would directly be deleted, or it would be used to replace the previously existing file for that asset. So we can see now that Ronald Weasley's file was updated by Hermione Granger. And if we go and check the emails again, this time around, like before, like in case of Harry and Hermione's email, it does say that it was approved recently and mentions what the asset ID was, who approved it, and who updated it, and the updated timestamp. But it also mentions that the asset modifier Hermione Granger has been added to the list of approved users for this asset. And as a result, all modifications of this asset by her will be processed without the need for approval by the owner, Ronald Weasley. Let's go back to our digital asset management system, log out, and log back in as Hermione Granger. Let us now try to verify that Hermione has been added as an approved user to Ronald's file, which is 1.m4a, but not to Harry's asset, which is img_angular. So if we try to update this file, which is 1.m4a, and if we try to upload this particular file here, instead of the one which already exists, We can see that this time around there was no notification that said this change is subject to approval from the asset owner. It directly said that this asset has been updated in the system. And you can see that this has updated over here as well, that Hermione Granger was the last person to modify this, and it was last modified at 7/3/34, which is the current time. Going back, let's try the same thing on Harry's asset. Let's try to update it. And let's give this file this time around. Because Hermione has not been added as an approved user to this particular asset, we should get the same response as before, which says that asset update is pending approval from the asset owner. And that's exactly what we see here on the screen. Let's try changing ownership of the asset now. So Hermione owns this particular asset, which she can provide as, which she can update and say that I don't want to be the owner of this asset anymore. I want to transfer ownership to somebody else. So let's click on change ownership of asset, and you need to provide the email address of the user that you want to provide this asset to. So we'll provide Ronald Weasley's email address and say change owner of asset. And it says that the owner has been successfully updated in the system. You can see that the change has been made here itself. The asset owner is now Ronald Weasley. Going back, we can verify that Hermione now owns no assets in this system. We can also go to Mailtrap and see what emails were sent recently regarding all of these assets. So Ronald's asset was recently updated by Hermione Granger. This is the email which was sent for the change that Hermione made, which was directly processed without requiring an approval from Ronald. This second email is the one which says somebody has requested to update your digital asset, which has been sent to Harry, which was for the change that Hermione had suggested on Harry's asset. Because Hermione is not an approved user, obviously it went through this process and did not directly update the asset like it did in case of Ronald's asset. And then this last mail is regarding the change of ownership which Hermione just did. So it went out to both Hermione and Ronald, and it says that the asset was updated recently. And what it says is that the update was made by the previous asset owner, which is Hermione Granger, and the new asset owner has been set as Ronald Weasley. Going back into our application, if we log in as Ronald Weasley, we can see that Ronald now owns both the asset that he had uploaded as well as the one that Hermione had uploaded. Let's try out the deletion of a digital asset now. So we can go in and click on this one and say delete digital asset, because we want to see that this particular asset, even though it gets deleted, the history is maintained in the blockchain. Let's retain the value of this asset ID. I've copied it to my clipboard, and let's say delete digital asset. So it's asking us if we want to really delete this asset, and I'm gonna say yes. And as soon as that is done, the asset has gone from the system, and we can close this. Query my digital assets as well as query all digital assets now shows only the other assets and not the one which Hermione had initially uploaded. So how do you go ahead and see the history of any particular asset? So let's log out from here, and we can go to get history for digital asset with a query parameter of the asset ID, which is this. And as soon as you do that, you can see all of the changes that were made for this particular asset. So it shows that in the 0th key is this particular entry, which says asset owner was Hermione Granger. It was created by Hermione Granger, create timestamp, the approved users for this, the modifications pending approval, the type was digital asset, all of that. The second key over here indicates that the created by is still Hermione Granger because she's the one who created it. However, the asset owner was changed and now it's Ronald Weasley. It's no longer Hermione Granger. The third key shows that there is nothing there, which means it was deleted from the system or deleted from the blockchain. And that brings us to the end of our demo of digital assets management application created using IBM Blockchain Platform and IBM Cloud Object Storage. Don't forget to have a look at the second video, which I have linked in the description below. It talks about the various steps that you have to take to set up your blockchain platform, Cloud Object Storage, Kubernetes, Mailtrap.io, and how to install and instantiate as well as deploy the smart contract on the blockchain network, and then run the application.